Recapping week number 5 of the 2024 NFL season. And folks, remember when I told you on Thursday when I made my money line picks and best bets? I said I've never seen so many 1 and 2 point game lines when it comes to the spread. I said I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 out of 14 games were less than 3 point spreads. And by the way, if you include Browns and Commanders, which ended up being a 3 point spread, Bears Panthers, which was around 3.5, Packers Rams was a 3 point spread. Really, only Saints Chiefs, which was Chiefs favored by 5.5. Giants, Seahawks, Seattle favored by 6.5, and obviously Cardinals 9 or 7.5. Those were the only three games that had a significant point spread, so I knew it had a chance to be a wild weekend. Now I did go 7-7 in the money line. That hurt. A lot of these games came down to the wire. There was three games on CBS in the 1 o'clock window. All of them came down to the wire. Obviously, the Thursday night game went to overtime. That's the one game that ended up going my way, which is very fascinating. And it shows the parity right now in the National Football League. I did go 1 for 5 in best bets, but as you'll see, at least three of them, if not four of them, I got screwed in the last minute, and one of them I won in the last minute. So it was one of those weekends. I could have went 3 for 5 in best bets. I could have went 4 for 5, and yet I ended up going 1 for 5. So here we go. Let's recap it. We're going to start off with that shootout down in Atlanta Thursday night. Kirk Cousins throwing for over 500 yards, the Atlanta defense getting that key strip at the end of the game. Then Kirk Cousins obviously throwing the interception. That is followed by a holding call, which should have been negated by a face mask penalty that was not called on Atlanta. Backed Tampa Bay out of field goal range after Baker Mayfield was once again playing hot. He must have woke up that day feeling dangerous because Mike Evans, Chris Godwin were getting open all over the field. Tampa Bay's defense, though, they really struggled against Kirk Cousins, who was not just dinking and dunking. He was throwing it down the field to the likes of Darnell Mooney, who I think now personally has become their number one target. You have Drake London, who obviously had a huge game. Kyle Pitts at a signing. I would still love to see them use Bijan Robinson. I realize you cannot get everybody the football, but I think Atlanta needs to do a better job at spreading the wealth around. Ray McLeod even got opportunities in the passing game. Obviously, Kadero Hodge with the game-winning touchdown. Atlanta was dealing was not. I should have lost this game. Tampa should have won this thing. Tampa should be 4-1. Atlanta should be 2-3. They play in a couple weeks. Tampa Bay at home is going to have revenge on their mind, especially both of these regions now going through the multiple hurricanes that have been down there in the south. We pray for all those members that were affected by those hurricanes, obviously down in Tampa, the ones that came up to the Carolinas. I know there's some coming that way this week. But these two teams, in my opinion, will be battling for first place in the NFC South. I think the Saints are kind of showing you they're beat up on the offensive line. Yes, they surprised Dallas in week 2. Outside of a week 1 win against Carolina, they have not been a very good football team when they stepped up in class. So credit to Kirk Cousins, who, let's face it, he can't move. He's like a statue back there. But on a short week, man, he was dealing it. Both of these teams have a defensive issue. Obviously, Tampa not getting a lot of pressure on Cousins. They did get it late in the game. Cousins was able to hang in there. We all know Atlanta's issues with pass rush. They're going to need to fix that if they want to make a deep playoff run. But this was an incredibly entertaining game. I did bet Atlanta. Again, I got it. Arguably, you could make the argument if Tampa got the ball first in overtime, Tampa could have went in and scored. Again, if it wasn't for that whole missed face mask call, they negate the holding penalty. Tampa probably kicks a field goal, goes on and wins this game. But regardless, by far the best Thursday night game of the year. Okay, so Aaron Rodgers throws a pick six, and obviously another pick in the first quarter. Vikings go up 17-0 against the Jets. Aaron Rodgers gets the ball less than 2 minutes in the half. He ends up finding Allen Lazard on a crazy play where he stepped up in the pocket, back in the end zone. It makes it 17-7 Vikings at the half. And I thought, well, this bet doesn't look good because I picked the Jets plus 2.5. I thought the Jets had a real shot at it. And Minnesota's offense, I think this has become a trend. And even though the Vikings are 5-0, I will tell you, I still don't think Minnesota is the best team in this division, and they play the Lions in 2 weeks with them coming off a bye. That's going to be a very interesting game in Minnesota. That will be the game that I will tell you if the Vikings are for real or not, because over the past 2 weeks, at Green Bay, did not move the ball that great in the second half. Here against the Jets in London, only got 2 field goal attempts in the second half. Sam Darnold less than 50% completion percentage. What won the Vikings this game was Brian Flores' defense, which again can show you they may be a complete team. They're better defensively than maybe we all thought. Aaron Rodgers looked terrible. And outside of Garrett Wilson, this is why, as I said on Friday, I do believe in the next couple of weeks, Devontae Adams will be a New York Jet and no longer a Las Vegas Raider. Because outside of Garrett Wilson, nobody can get open. Mike Williams looked washed. Their offensive line's in shambles. I mean, Aaron Rodgers went down at one point in this game. I thought he had potentially torn his ACL again. Obviously, the Jets get a roughing the punter call on the sequence. Aaron Rodgers comes back in, leads him to a field goal on that drive to make it 17-10 at that point. But the Jets, they had a chance to win this game. And on the last drive, the last play, I don't know what Aaron Rodgers was thinking. It was a horrible ball to Mike Williams. It's behind him when it should be out in front of him. But again, Mike Williams looks like he cannot run anymore. The offensive line, they brought in, Tyron Smith, who's been good at left tackle after the Morgan Moses injury at right tackle. They've struggled to protect Rodgers there. Rodgers is struggling to move, and when you can't protect and you can't run the ball, it's a recipe for disaster for the New York Jets. The good news for the Jets is the Dolphins are done without Tua. New England's not going to do anything this year, and Buffalo's lost to Houston sets up a huge matchup Monday night against the Bills. First place in the AFC East on the line, and obviously at the site where Aaron Rodgers went down with his Achilles injury a year ago. Okay, I thought at 1-3, Jaden Daniels facing his best defense he's seen since week one. Jim Schwartz, a blitzing attacking defense. I thought the Browns, who shocked us all when they came out against Jacksonville in week two, Deshaun Watson played his best game. They won that game. I thought Kevin Stefanski and his group would be ready to play. The Browns were not ready for the opening kickoff. Just a terrible 3-and-out on the first drive where they tried essentially a toss play to Deontay Foreman that got stuffed. It was just bad then from there on out. Jaden Daniels made an incredible throw to Terry McLaurin down the sideline. Commanders moved to 4-1. Browns are 1-4. Deshaun Watson is just it's bad. The offensive line is bad. Without Nick Chubb, they cannot run the football at all, which again, I've said I don't think the value of running back is as great as one back making the whole team better. Maybe the Browns are the exception because this team doesn't even try to run the ball without Nick Chubb in there. I thought Greg Olsen on the broadcast very strategically pointed out the difference between why Deshaun Watson in the shotgun, why Kevin Stefanski's offense, the 12 personnel under center bootleg, why it's not meshing, why it's not connecting, why it looked so different last year with Joe Flacco under center for the Browns. That game was just ugly. Washington took apart the Browns' offensive line again. Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne had a great game up front. Jaden Daniels made some incredible plays, eluding JOK down the sideline on a 4th and 3 late in the first half that led to a Brian Robinson touchdown off another missed tackle by the Browns. It's been a theme by the Browns all year long, missed tackles. This team looks dead. They are one of the biggest underdogs now in the NFL the whole year. Week 6, they go to Philadelphia off a bye. In my opinion, the two worst tackling teams in football. Browns and Eagles. You guys know Browns are my hometown team. You guys know Philadelphia Eagles are my favorite team ever since I grew up in the Donovan McNabb era. I will bring on my buddy Josh Unger. We usually do championship rings every Tuesday night. Due to the MLB playoffs, we will not be doing championship rings tonight, but I will be on Unger's YouTube channel this week. You guys know he does video collaborations in collaboration with Voltage Live, where he interviews everybody from the opposing team of who the Browns play that week. Obviously, they're playing the Eagles, so I will be on there. We will be recording that Wednesday night around 7 p.m. Eastern if you want to get my thoughts on that. Ugly, ugly football. Good for the Commanders. There's a reason why I picked them to win the playoffs, and I think they may be in first place by the end of, you know, the season in the NFC. It's a long way to go. Philadelphia's obviously got a shot to get back in it, but Washington is the real deal. Cincinnati. Obviously not going to play McPherson. The bad hold, I get it. They should have won the game. Cincinnati's had excruciating losses this year to be 1-4. Should have beat New England week one. Should have beat Kansas City week two. They couldn't stop Jaden Daniels week three. Lamar Jackson, that play where he scooped the ball off the ground. I know you guys saw it. He stiff armed Trey Anderson twice, threw it in the back of the end zone to Isaiah Likely. One of the craziest plays I think I've ever seen. um, this was a classic Ravens Bengals game, right? Up and down the field. But Cincinnati's issues this year is not their offense. T. Higgins has finally started getting going. Jamar Chase has finally started getting going. He had a huge game on Sunday. Bengals put up 38 points of offense. When it mattered the most after they missed the field goal, the defense was so deflated that Derrick Henry just ran 40 yards down to the 5 yard line. Easy chip shot for Justin Tucker for the game winning field goal. Baltimore comes back from 0-3 to 3-2. Pittsburgh goes from 3-0 to 3-2. Baltimore and Pittsburgh are now tied in the division. Good news for Cincinnati is again, Pittsburgh lost. They're only 2 games back at the Steelers. The Bengals, they're going to have to start winning. And the Giants, they knocked off Seattle. We'll get to it in a minute. That was a shocker. I think Daniel Jones has played well over the last month and against the Bengals defense, which, anybody can score on at this point. It's not a gimme game anymore for Cincinnati, but they got to get the gimme games. They got to get the get right games. And they still have time. But this offense is not the issue. It's the defense. They can't stop a nosebleed. Sam Hubbard, Trey Anderson, they're not getting any pass rush on the quarterback. Lamar Jackson had all day to throw. They did do a good job in the run game again till the end. At the end of the day, Lamar Jackson was special. He just made incredible plays from inside and outside of the pocket. Ravens got the ball last. Cincinnati didn't execute. Baltimore did. What a wild finish. I still think the Bengals are probably one of the best 1-4 teams I've seen in the National Football League. Okay, so again, I had Cincinnati plus 2.5. That one ripped my heart out. What also ripped my heart out was New England. They were plus 1.5. They were getting points against the Dolphins. They were up 10-9. They were holding Miami down. The Dolphins then ran 7 straight run plays to get into the end zone with Tyler Huntley to take the lead 15-10. Jacoby Brissett would drive New England down the field. He would throw a ball to Demario Douglas in the back of the end zone. Douglas would only get 1 foot in bound. That was the game. That was New England's chance. Yes, Miami has 2 wins this year. Their other win, by the way, was a last second with no time on the clock win against the Jacksonville Jaguars week one. Now they beat the Patriots, who just don't have a good offensive line. Jacoby Brissett has not thrown for more than 175 yards in a game this season. No, I don't think it saves Miami's season. No, I don't think the Dolphins are very good. I think this Tua Tagovailoa injury has shown us the value of Tua. And again, I don't even think Tua is an A- quarterback, but what he is a perfect system fit for that Dolphins offense. They cannot really move the ball without him. And they're lucky New England can't move the ball. I think along with Cleveland, these are the 2 worst offenses in football. That was an ugly, ugly watch. Again, I like the Patriots plus the points. I thought Brissett could at least get him in field goal range. He could at least outplay Tyler Huntley. There was better bets on the board. Hindsight's 2020. I'll take my L there. Okay, I thought the spread was weird in this game. Houston was plus 1.5. I said I would take the Texans because I think they need a get right game. But I thought Joe Mixon was going to be back for this game. He was not. They dominated most of this game. Buffalo then came back in the second half. But I think the story of this game was not that, Houston's offense went again quiet in the second half, the way they did week two, the way they did against week three. Are people starting to figure out Bobby Slowick's system down there in Houston? But it is the fact that Josh Allen, without Shakir, the number one target, they barely got Dalton Kincaid the ball in the passing game. They didn't use James Cook. It went back to the Ken Dorsey offense of Josh Allen save us as opposed to the Joe Brady offense of spreading the wealth around. And Josh Allen went 9 of 30, did miss a play because of a potential concussion. Mitch Trubisky had to come in. He handed the ball off. Josh Allen came back in. But 9 of 30 for that guy who, you can make an argument is a top three, at least top five quarterback in the National Football League, it's not good. And over the last 2 weeks, we've seen Buffalo again revert back to what they were before the OC change. That is concerning in my book. Now, they have a big game again here against the Jets, and the AFC East looks to be down this year. Miami, to me, is pretty much out of it. I don't think they're going to make a miracle run with Tua, especially if you look at the back half of their schedule. They got to go to Green Bay, they got to go to um, the Jets, they have to go to Cleveland, which even though the Browns will be a sad, sorry football team by then, it's still Tua in cold weather. Um, I think that this is a two-team race in the AFC East, so that's the good news for Buffalo. Though against those Jets corners, DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner, how will Buffalo attack them without Stephon Diggs? That'll be interesting to watch next Monday night. Again, Texans offense hasn't looked great. They have not been able to run the ball that much without Joe Mixon. They're hoping to get him back this week against New England. So I don't think they need him against New England per se. But CJ Stroud has not looked as sharp. He's still making a couple good throws a game, but he's just not been as sharp and as efficient. And they have not gotten Tank Dell involved in the passing game, even when Nico Collins went down, which could be a big loss for them. It was a lot of Stephon Diggs in his revenge game against his former team. Okay, this game was a wild shootout. Jacksonville took control for most of the game. Their defense let up a couple bombs that Joe Flacco threw out. They ended up getting the game-winning field goal. Jags saved their season. They were a 2.5 point favorite. History will tell you the Jaguars have now not only beat Indianapolis 9 straight times, in Jacksonville, they have covered all 9 times. So that's a real stat, no matter who the coach quarterbacks are for either side. Trevor Lawrence played his first good game of the year, a real clean game. The Jaguars' defense is bad. They're pretty good against the run. They did a good job against Indianapolis, who was without Jonathan Taylor. Trey Sermon did get in the end zone, but it was sort of a goal line carry where Flacco led them down the field. They're horrendously bad, in my opinion, against the pass. So that is something that we'll be, needing to look out for going forward, especially this week when they go to London against the Bears. Again, Jacksonville historically good in London. We know this, but they're taking on a Bears team who just flat out destroyed Carolina. I mean, the Andy Dalton same song is over. Caleb Williams had his best game of the year. I said it. I didn't know why that line was only 4 points. I should have taken it. Again, hindsight's 2020. When you're in my shoes and you're trying to decide games and you're on the fly and you see so many low line games and you know the history of this league this year, which is take points, it's when I lean to this week. Though again, I should have went with a couple of favorites. I would have replaced the New England bet with Chicago at least. I like Cincinnati. I like Pittsburgh. Probably should have replaced the Jets with Jacksonville. But again, hindsight's 2020 there. Denver defeated Vegas. I told you guys Denver's over under was 5.5 going into the year. I did not understand it at all. I think the Broncos are going to win 7, 8 games. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but Bo Nix is getting better every single week. Huge pick six return from Patrick Surtain to really get the blood in motion here. And I said it, even though the Raiders are 2-2, I don't love the Raiders. I know they won 8 straight games against the Broncos, but they're not a very good football team. I don't think Antonio Pierce, I know he's a rah-rah guy, and he got the Raiders playing well after Josh McDaniels was fired a year ago. I don't think Antonio Pierce is the greatest head coach in the world. Gardner Minshew was starting to turn the football over. Without Devontae Adams, they really tried to get the ball in the hands of Brock Bowers, and Patrick Surtain took out Jacoby Myers, and it was a lot of passing in the middle of the field. I think the Devontae Adams thing is a distraction. I think they need to get him out of the building. I know he's got a hamstring issue right now, but it just looked like to me the tracks are falling off of the Raiders. They have a good week, they have a bad week, they have a good week, they have a bad week. Like they're a typical 6-7 win team. Max Crosby's there. You got Christian Wilkins there who came over from Miami. Tyree Wilson on the pass rush. But their defense, again, on the back end is suspect. So if you have time to throw, you're going to have success. Bo Nix and Sean Payton are starting to look like they're in sync. That was Bo Nix's best game of his young career. The Giants, without Devin Singletary, without Malik Neighbors, Seattle fell asleep at the wheel. Giants win 29-20, eliminating a lot of people, including yours truly, in their survivor pools for the year. I thought Seattle was, the lock of the week here, with the Giants being all banged up, Seattle coming off that loss to Detroit. But this is what I want to talk about because this is interesting. During the past couple of years, it's always been San Francisco. When you play San Francisco, the next week, teams lose. There was a stat 2 years ago that every team that played the Niners the next week, they lost. That team this year is not the Niners, it's the Detroit Lions. And teams are getting their doors blown off. Rams played the Lions week one. You know what happened in week two? Rams got their doors blown off. Tampa Bay played Detroit in week two. You know what happened in week three? Tampa Bay got their doors blown off. Detroit played Arizona in week three. You know what happened in week four for Arizona? You guessed it, got their doors blown off. Seattle played Detroit in week four. Guess what happened week five? They didn't get their doors blown off, but they could have. Now, Seattle did have a chance. Giants messed up some fourth quarter clock situations. There was a crazy 100-yard fumble return in this game. Obviously, it was 23-20. The blocked field goal by the Giants at the end of the game. They get the touchdown to win by 2 possessions. A rarity this week in the NFL at 29-20. Giants showing heart. Again, Daniel Jones has played well. If they just got in the end zone one time, they probably would have beat Dallas on Thursday night. So we'll see how that offense, if Malik Neighbors comes back, matches up with Jamar Chase. How about those two LSU wide receivers going at next Sunday night? Um, Again, Seattle, I said it, right? They beat Miami without a quarterback, but they barely beat New England. They beat Bo Nix in his first career start. We've seen our rookies get better throughout the year, and even Jaden Daniels struggled in his first career start against Tampa Bay. They lose a tough one to Detroit. Now they come back against the Giants and lose. And now they got an angry San Francisco situation, which this is really going to depend on the kicker. Listen, all credit to Arizona. Kyler Murray put an incredible game. It was a great game plan by offensive coordinator Drew Pensing in the second half. They started using James Conner more. The defensive line started to get pressure on Brock Purdy. They forced a fumble. But even though Arizona won this game, San Francisco's 2-3. Without Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy does not look like the same quarterback. I get all that. With that being said, though, Jake Moody went down. And this is the second time this season that a team has lost because they didn't have a backup kicker. Giants lost to Washington week two because they couldn't kick extra points because they didn't have a backup kicker. San Francisco, Jake Moody goes down. There was a couple plays in the red zone where they had to go for it on fourth down. They did not get it. They could have made it a 2 possession game. And they even blocked a field goal for a touchdown. So 16 offensive points for Brock Purdy in San Francisco. That to me is even more concerning. They tried, it looked like, to force feed Brandon Ayuk. That did not go over well for the offensive structure. George Mason did not get the ball that much. And again, Brock Purdy, he is a quick processor of information. I get it, but I think he's more of a system quarterback of the people around him. We see Jordan Love be successful in that Green Bay offense. We've seen, Sam Darnold obviously be successful in that Minnesota offense, though he did struggle, as I alluded to, in London against the Jets. Purdy to me is a part of that clog of that, West Coast zone running scheme under center point action scheme that the Shanahans love to run. Credit to Arizona, they might have just saved their season with that win. But again, how will the Moody factor play in now Thursday night in Seattle? We know it's a tough place to play. Seattle has lost two in a row. They're 3-2. San Francisco cannot drop to 2-4, especially if Seattle wins, then they're 4-2. Minnesota's already 5-0. San Francisco then would be in danger of not even hosting a playoff game, but having no shot at the number one seed, barring a historic collapse. So big game for both teams Thursday night. Listen, I said it. I know that they were missing Romeo Dobbs because he's suspended, because he's mad at his target share or whatever the case may be. But Jordan Love and the Packers, they needed this game more than the Rams. The Rams, they played hard. Jordan Love had a bad pick six where he tried to avoid taking a safety and just threw it out of the end zone right to the Rams. That was a bad play by him. But you take away that play, this game's 24-12. Green Bay dominated the game. They covered the 3 points, obviously. Stafford did not get anything going much in the first half. The Rams just don't have an offensive line. They're running out of weapons. They're down to Tutu Atwell and, Demarcus Robinson, the former Chief, out there. So they're a good football team. They're not getting as much pressure without Aaron Donald. Jaren Verse, the rookie there, isn't producing at the rate that the Rams want him to. So I think this was a big game for Green Bay, especially with Minnesota winning. You did have Detroit on a bye, Chicago winning. The pressure was on. Jordan Love gets his first win of the year. I don't know what to say about Pittsburgh. This game started at 9:45 Eastern time due to the rain delay. Obviously the lightning delay. Dallas, who was without DeMarcus Lawrence, they were without Micah Parsons, struggled to stop the run all year long against a team that can actually run the football. Justin Fields looked like a backup. He looked like Chicago Bears Justin Fields. And I said the Steelers were 3-0. They had an easy schedule to start. You face Bo Nix in the second start, Mike Tomlin against a young quarterback, face Kirk Cousins in his first game where he could not go under center, and that's a big deal for that Zach Robinson-led offense down in Atlanta, as we saw Thursday night against Tampa Bay. There's a win there. You face the Chargers with Justin Herbert limping, them coming west to East Coast. And obviously, as I mentioned, they're banged up. And then you got Indianapolis, who's a desperate team, and Flacco again, more decisive than Anthony Richardson at that point. Now you got Dallas, who was all beat up. Your chance to win the game, go to 4-1, run the football, no mistakes, play good defense, rattle Dak and CeeDee Lamb, who had another interesting conversation on the sideline. But in the end, Jalen Tolbert and Dak on fourth down, they made the play after Heinz Smith, I believe it was, or somebody for the Steelers, flew over the top. That was insane. Flying over the top there down on the goal line, almost punching the football out. Dallas got a gritty, grinded out game. Mike McCarthy, they talked about it from the broadcast from the Pittsburgh area. Dak and Cooper Rush went to go visit McCarthy's parents with him Saturday afternoon. That was a nice moment. Dallas now at 3-2. Now they have two tough games against the Lions, Niners, and they have Atlanta coming up with a bye in week 7, followed by again San Francisco, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Washington, Houston. So there's a lot of 50-50. There's a lot of games Dallas will not be favored in, just like this one, which is why this one was so huge for them. But I think the Steelers are going to go back to Russell Wilson. I think he's going to make this start here in week 6. The broadcast kind of alluded to it where, Justin Fields would have to play exceptional for them not to go to Russell Wilson because even though they've won during the past couple of weeks, he has not looked great. He's just doing his part of not turning the football over. Maybe you lose the design running aspect with Fields, but maybe, just maybe, Arthur Smith gets rushed to get the ball out of his hands quicker than Fields. I don't know. I mean, George Pickens is not running routes hard, and outside of Fryermuth and Pickens, I mean, Jalen Warren's hurt. He's been a huge spark plug, as we know, to the offense, and that offense just looks pedestrian. It's a bad watch. And then we had Kansas City. Again, Derek Carr got hurt. Jake Henning or whoever had to come in. That game was over though. Kansas City just took them apart. Didn't matter. They did not have Rasheed Rice. Didn't matter. They didn't have Isaiah Pacheco. Kareem Hunt comes in off the street the last couple of weeks. Has a big game. Travis Kelce is back to doing Travis Kelce things. Xavier Worthy at an end around rushing touchdown. Patrick Mahomes did his most efficient game of the year. Chiefs defense takes apart that Saints offensive line that could not protect Derek Carr all night. The Chiefs, with their best game of the year, most complete game of the year by far, they win the game 26-13. Again, the only bet I had was Atlanta -1.5. I missed the Jets, missed the Bengals, missed New England, and I missed Pittsburgh. We'll see if I can rebound when we do my best bets and money line picks. And what may be the hardest week of the year. This is the hardest year in the NFL to bet. Parity in the NFL is here. At first, it was take the better defense and take the points. Now, again, it's looking slowly like we're starting to get which teams are for real, starting to take the better quarterback. I do find some of the early numbers this week interesting. We'll dive more into that on Thursday.
Like that clip from the Brandsworth podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brandsworth podcast right here on YouTube.